Okay, as John opens what we moderns have labeled as chapter 4 of his letter, we see the concern he's expressing about the promulgation of false notions about his Jesus, the one he handled, the one he saw and heard. So what he says in the first few verses here, he says, "Dear friends, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world." And he says, this is how you can recognize the Spirit of God. Wouldn't we like to know the answer to that? Every spirit that acknowledges that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God. See, there were spirits who were denying that. But every spirit that does not acknowledge Jesus is not from God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist. Anti means against. The Antichrist, which you have heard is coming and even now is already in the world. So John is referring here to a belief in the incarnation as a test of God's Spirit, the presence of God's Spirit. He had already mentioned those of his congregation who had defected into the world. Maybe we'll look at chapter 2 for a moment here. Before he got to this chapter, he had written the following in chapter 2, verses 18 and 19. He says, "Dear children, this is the last hour. And as you have heard that the Antichrist is coming, even now many Antichrists have come. This is how we know it is the last hour. They defected into the world. They went out from us. But they did not really belong to us, for if they had belonged to us, they would have remained with us. But their going showed that none of them belonged to us." They never really understood the true Jesus in the first place. So this is the strong thread that runs through this letter. Watch out for something he calls the spirit of Antichrist. So John acknowledges a spiritual battle that's waging in the world over truth and over who is the truth. Remember what Jesus said he was? I am the truth. False teaching does not acknowledge the true nature of the Messiah. And so I'd said that one major heresy regards the incarnation. And its claim is that Jesus did not really become a full human being. And without this truth, we are left with a God who really cannot identify with you and I in the flesh, and cannot have the level and depth of compassion that is needed in dealing with flawed human beings. So this is part of the lie that represents the spirit of Antichrist. And so some were contending for some Jesus of another nature, rather than that revealed by Jesus and the apostles. And this is called the spirit of Antichrist. We don't need to expend a lot of energy trying to figure out some single end-time individual that we could call the Antichrist. That wasn't nearly as important to John. The real issue is a lying spirit that uses many human beings in every generation to falsify the truth about who Jesus really was and is. I wonder if we realize how important it is for us to observe and celebrate the incarnation, because it reminds us of the true nature of this one that we worship. So John had already clarified this issue in the prologue to his gospel. And we're blessed to have it preserved because no other gospel of those that we have contain the story of the incarnation in these terms. And this tells us so much more than the story of the manger, in terms of who the person really is. So in John chapter 1, this is the same writer, this is the beginning of his gospel, uses the same terminology as in his letter. It says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. Very important. And the Word was God. So, now, was He divine in nature? He was with God in the beginning. He was not only God, look what God He was. He was the Creator God. Verse 3, through Him all things were made. I was walking up and down Alamo Creek, I think it is, next to Pastor Steve's house, every morning this week. And I have never seen trees like this. I don't know if you've seen them, but these oaks are I can't reach my arms far enough to show you the size of the trunks. And then there are also some eucalyptus that are that gigantic. And I was just thinking about, I guess that looks like a dandelion from the throne of heaven, but I know that Jesus walked up and down among those after He made them, and He said, boy, those are very good. They are. They're gorgeous. They're beautiful. So, the one who became the Word, who became flesh, made everything. In fact, without Him, nothing was made that has been made. So you look around you in the natural world, you can think the same one, the same one who came to earth in the flesh. In Him was life, and that life was the light of men. Life and light. These terms John uses almost interchangeably. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness under the sway of the spirit of Antichrist is not understood. So the summary here is that the Word was God, He was the Creator of all things, and He is the light of the world. One of the more appropriate symbols of the Christmas season, in my opinion, is all the bright lights that are turned on at night when it's dark. You don't see them much in the daylight, but when it's dark, they light everything up beautifully. He's the light of the world. And the penetration of the physical darkness can remind us of how Christ lights up the spiritual darkness. And so we say, shine, Jesus, shine. This is a good time of year for us to remember that song. So now, we saw that the Word is God. Now it says in verse 14, something else about the Word. It says in verse 14, the Word became flesh. And He pitched His tent among us. That's what this word means, tabernacled. Dwelt. He dwelt among us. He made His dwelling here. He camped out with we other human beings.
Our international audience can support our multimedia efforts by subscribing to PayPal, the safe and secure online payment option from eBay in the United States. Donations in the euro currency or other approved currency options are easily processed and received instantly. Show your support for Worldwide Church of God in Fairfield, California, USA. The Worldwide Church of God in Fairfield, Santa Rosa, and Modesto are located in the San Francisco Bay Area, regarded as the most prosperous region in the United States. We believe Jesus Christ when He proclaimed in Matthew 6:24 that serving God is more important than serving mammon. We welcome everyone to come and worship and fellowship every Saturday at the times listed on your screen and on our website, worldwidechurchofgod.com.